Hey everybody, happy Tutorial Thursday. We are into our 2 weeks of Halloween. We're in the second week of 2 weeks of Halloween here on the Beading Dreams stream. So we have for y'all today these really cute Dia de los Muertos earrings and lots of fun things that you can do with this technique. I had a little bit of prep work that I'd intended to do before stream and I forgot, so I'm going to do that real quick. Thank you all so much for joining us on this Thursday lunchtime tutorial. And don't forget, we have another Halloween tutorial this evening. We're not doing Torch Thursday because of Halloween, so we have our crow's cage pendant this evening where I will take a skull bead and I will bedazzle it, and then I will encase it in a cage of wire. Ooh. I know, right? Well, again, I think gruesome was the word my mother used.
What was the word?
Gruesome?
We haven't even gotten to gruesome. Oh.
Right. That's pretty much tonight and Saturday night with the dismembering of the fashion doll. Okay, so let's talk tools and supplies for this afternoon's tutorial. It's a pretty simple one, and it actually just builds on the basic tassel making technique and just adding a few embellishments to make it seasonally appropriate. And I'm actually adding an additional embellishment, which is what I was doing just then. So what do you need to do this pair of earrings? You're going to need some wire. So I've got some 22 gauge craft wire that I'm going to be using this afternoon. You're going to need tassel cord, and I've chosen Shocking Pink. Sorry, Corvus, if you're on the stream. For my project, you're going to need 2 magnesite skull beads, and these are pretty easy to find. And if you wanted to, you could bedazzle them. You could glue rhinestones in the eyes like I'm going to do this evening. You need some chain, and you're going to need, this is more chain than I'm going to need for my 2 earrings. You need about 1.5 inches per earring, so you really only need about 3 inches of chain. I just cut some off of the spool, so I overcut a tad. You're going to need assorted jump rings, so you're going to need 4 smaller ones. These are 4mm jump rings, and 2 larger ones. These are 6mm jump rings. So each earring is going to get 2 small and 1 large. And then I've decided to add an extra embellishment hanging from the jump ring because it just seems like it would be cool. So I've got 2 little 6mm beads that I've already wire wrapped on head pins. And then as far as supplies go, no, that was supplies. As far as tools go, sorry, I'm drinking caffeine, I swear. Anyone who was on the stream last night is like, please, for the love of God, caffeinate yourself. Because I did not caffeinate myself before last night's stream, and therefore was very tired and found it difficult to focus. So, here's Sterling. Okay, so as far as tools go, you're going to need a piece of cardstock, basically a little bit longer than you want your earring to be, because we're going to give our tassels a haircut at the end of this. You're going to need some hypo cement. You are going to need your basic wire wrapping setup. That's going to be your round nose and your chain nose and your wire cutters. Since we're working with jump rings, I also have a second pair of chain nose that I'm going to use, and then also a knotting tweezers, and that's going to be for just tucking the ends of your tassels up under the bindings so that they're not super obvious. Let me just make sure nothing is... Oh, goodness. Okay, so you're going to start with your cardstock. And so this is just a generic piece of cardstock, and I'm going to cut 2 slits in the bottom of it. And then I'm going to take my tassel cord. And so what is tassel cord? Tassel cord is just a synthetic cord that's shiny like this, and that's what it makes a really pretty tassel. But you really could use any kind of cord for this. You could use embroidery floss, you could use any kind of soft string that you have. If you wanted a more rustic look, you could even use like a thin twine. So the technique is the same no matter what type of material you are using. So that technique is, we're going to take our tassel cord and we're going to clip it into one of those little notches that we cut in our cardstock. And then I'm going to start wrapping my tassel cord around my cardstock. And obviously I can only do this so much under my camera, so I'm just wrapping it around my cardstock. And I'm going to go for 50 wraps. So that was 3, 10, 20, 30. And this is another reason that you want your card to be a little bit longer than you want your tassel, because especially if this isn't the stiffest cardstock, so it's going to start bending, so you're going to lose some length on that. 40. 50. Okay, and then after my 50th wrap, I'm going to go ahead and clip that into the other notch and cut it off. So this is what I have so far. I've got 50 wraps of cord, which equals 100 strands, because what we're going to do is we're going to bind this at the top and then cut at the bottom. So the number of strands you're going to wind up with is double the amount of wraps that you made. So you got 50 wraps, 100 strands. Now we're going to set this aside for a second while we prepare the finishing things for our tassels. So I'm going to start with my 22 gauge wire, and I'm just going to cut myself about a 6-inch piece of that. This is probably a little generous, but it'll work. I want to make sure I've got a skull bead standing by. And then I need to prepare my chain pieces. So I'm going to grab out my chain, and I'm going to cut 2 pieces that are slightly smaller than 1 inch. So I did 1 inch when I did my samples initially, and it was just a little caffeine. I was just a little out of proportion to the size of the tassels. So I'm going to do slightly less than 1 inch. I do love these. These are like vintage Office Depot rulers that have this channel down the middle, which makes it really easy to lay something like a chain in there and then cut it. So 1 inch is here. I'm going to go here to 7/8, and that's where I'm going to trim it. And I'm going to go ahead and just do all my trimming at the same time, because why not? So I'm going to cut myself 4 pieces at 7/8 of an inch. So how's everybody's Thursday going? It's another beautiful fall day here in Dallas. Definitely enjoying all of that while it lasts. And Sharon, when I got on stream initially, asked me about my feather gluing project from, it actually turned into this morning, because last night I just pretty much went home and fell asleep, because lack of caffeine equals Allison is a zombie. So I did Elton's Halloween wings this morning, and they turned out really, really well, but Elton is skeptical about this. He's really not sure whether the wings are there to harm him or not. So I have not yet succeeded in getting Elton to wear the wings. And I haven't tried Mamie yet either. So yeah, that's going to be interesting. Okay, so now I've got my jump rings. So I'm going to grab 2 of the little ones and 1 of the big ones. Maybe? Come on. And then I'm also going to grab this extra little embellishment that I made. Okay, I have you on auto exposure. Why are you so dark? So if anybody has advice on how to get a cat to wear raven wings for Halloween, please let me know.
Drugging is not acceptable.
Yeah, and I mean, positive reinforcement training is great and all, but I've only got 2 days. So if anybody has any shortcuts, I would be happy to hear them. It may just wind up being a picture of Elton, like, staring at the raven wings on the floor, honestly. Okay, so now I'm going to take so I've got my 2 small jump rings and my 1 large jump ring. There, and there. Now I'm going to put together my chain piece. So I'm going to take my small jump ring and I'm going to use 2 pairs of chain hose to open it up. So when you're opening a jump ring, what you want to do is, it's always easiest to use 2 pairs of pliers. So you're just going to grab one on each side of the opening and twist. What you do not want to do when you're opening a jump ring is you don't want to flatten it out. You want to twist it so that you maintain that circle. And then I'm going to put that on the end of one of my chains, like so, and then I'm going to close it up. And then I'm going to go to my big jump ring, and I'm going to open that the same way. And this one's a 6mm, the other one was a 4mm. And I'm going to go ahead and drop my little extra embellishment on there. I'm going to take the piece of chain that already has a jump ring and I'm going to drop that on there, and then I'm going to take another piece of chain and I'm going to drop that on there. So now what's on my 6mm jump ring is my little decorative bit and then 2 pieces of chain, one of which has a jump ring attached. Now we're going to close that up, and then we're going to take the piece of chain that does not have the jump ring attached to the end, and we're going to put a jump ring there. So open that up, attach your ring, and close. Alright, so then you should have something that looks like this. And I'm just going to go ahead and do that for my second earring as well, just so that everything is done and ready to go. So once again, I need 2 small jump rings, 1 large jump ring. So that's a small, and a large, and a small. I'm going to use my little embellishment that I made, which is just a 6mm bead on a head pin with a basic wire wrap, and my 2 pieces of chain that I cut when I was cutting on my chain a moment ago. Now, same thing. So open my jump rings. So small one. Goes on the end of 1 chain. Then large one goes on the other end of said chain, and my little embellishment and my last piece of chain. Close that up. And then last jump ring, open, attach to the only end of chain that isn't attached to something already, and then close. So now I have 2 of these little chain and embellishment bits. Now we're going to go ahead and make our first earring. So we've already wrapped the tassel cord around, 50 wraps. I'm going to go ahead and cut another piece of my tassel cord that's about 2 feet long, and I'm going to have that ready to the side because I'm going to have to do my binding with that. And then I do have my 6-inch piece of 22 gauge that I cut a minute ago. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this entire group of wrapped cords off of the cardstock so that now you're holding this kind of untidy bundle of cords, and now we're going to go ahead and finish the top of it. So that means I'm going to take what? No, thank you. I swear I didn't even do anything. So we're going to take that through all of the cords, okay, so make sure that they're all, you know, on the outside of this wire, and then we're going to take our wire. What the heck, camera? Apparently. Okay, so we're going to see if we can finish this project before my camera craps out. At least I didn't melt it this time, so there's that. Okay, so I've got this whole bundle of cords, and I've got my wire underneath all of them. Now I'm going to take my wire and I'm going to bend it so that it makes a triangle. And then we're going to string these little chain bits that we made onto the wires. So I'm going to start with my long wire, and I'm just going to feed that down, and that's going to drop onto one end of my wire, and then I'm going to take the other end, feed it onto the short wire, and I want to get that. So you want to make sure you get your chain down here. It's going to want to stall up above the cross. You want it to go below the cross. So I'm just going to separate that a little bit so that my chain will drop down there below my crossing point, like so. And now I'm going to do what's essentially a top drilled wire wrap. I'm going to take the long one and I'm going to bend it up straight, and then I'm going to wrap the short one around the long one. Okay, apparently my eyes are not being cooperative today. So nice of them. Wrap the short one around the long one 1 1/2 times. Trim. And press down. So now you should have this. So this at this point kind of looks like Cousin It wearing a Mr. T chain. So now we're going to go ahead and finish our tassel, and that's where this other piece of cord that we cut comes in to play. So this chain bit can go out of the way for now. It can just go up there. I'm going to bring all these tassel bits together, and I'm going to take my piece of cord and I'm just going to hold it against my tassel, and I'm going to start wrapping. So this is me creating the binding on my tassel. So what I want for my binding is I want it to be tight, and I want the bindings to be very neat. So I want them to just stack one right above each other, and try your best not to overlap them. So once you've bound around about 5 or 6 times, you can take this cord and you can go back and find the beginning cord of your binding, and we're just going to tie these two together. Once you get the first one tied nice and tight, It's easier because then you can use two hands instead of having to tie it one-handed. Alright, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that knot and I'm going to put a little drop of hypo cement on it. Assuming I can get the hypo cement open. And then I'm going to grab my tweezers and take that knot that I just glued right there, and I want to take my tweezers and shove it down underneath my bindings. So I just want to take it and I want to just wiggle it and push it down until it disappears behind those bindings. Which, if you did a really good job binding nice and tight, is actually a little difficult. But the tighter your bindings are, the neater your tassel is going to look. Okay, cool. So once you've got it behind those binding cords, then you can just go ahead and take those loose strings and you can clip them off. And if you got it tucked really nicely behind those cords, you can clip it off pretty flush. Okay, so we are getting there with our little earring. So now we have our tassel, we have the chain bit. Now all we need to add is the head. So I'm going to take my skull bead, drop it onto this long wire, like so, and then do a basic wire wrap loop on top of my skull bead. That's going to start with my round, It's going to start with my round nose pliers, and we're going to hold those so they're touching the top of my bead, and we're going to go away, rotate, back up over the top, rotate underneath. That makes our lady with the scarf. Hold across with your chain nose and just wrap down until you meet your skull. Ta-da! Go ahead and trim that off. Press it down. Alright, now we want to make sure, since these chain bits are representing arms, we want to make sure that that skull is turned so that the arms are in front instead of behind, like so. And I really do like that little embellishment. It's like she has a little purse, which I find fun. And then the last thing we need to do is give our lovely Dia de los Muertos lady a haircut. So I'm just going to bring my cords down so that they're all even. Got one that's caught. There we go. Okay. So just bring them down so that they're all even. And use a sharp scissors to just cut across the bottom. Alright, and there we go. There's one. Now we're going to do the other one. Okay, so I've got my chain bit prepared. I've got my skull ready. I've got enough of my 22 gauge wire still to do this. So now I'm going to go ahead and go back to my cardstock. And I'm going to wrap 50 times around. Now, if you want a fuller tassel, you can wrap more. You can wrap literally as many times as you want. But I'm still going to go with 50 because time. There's 10. $20. $30. 40. And sometimes your cord falls on the ground. Alright, there's 50. Clip that off. Trim it and then cut myself another length of my tassel cord. That's about 2 feet long. Set that aside. Alright, and now we're going to finish tassel number 2. So I'm going to take all of my cords, remove them from my piece of cardstock. Take my wire, put it underneath, and then bend that wire so that I make a triangle. Then I'm going to grab my other chain bit and I'm going to thread one jump ring on here and one jump ring on the short one. Right, so those should just pop down beneath my little crossing point of my triangle. There we go. Okay, so there's my triangle. If I'm checking my phone without my glasses on, I'm not going to be able to read anything. Okay, so there's my triangle, and I'm going to go ahead and bend that up, and then take my short end, wrap it around my long one. 1.5 to 2 times. And don't forget to press your end in, and then we're going to take our other skull, drop it down on there, do a basic wire wrap loop, which is away, rotate back up over the top, rotate underneath, hold across your loop, and wrap. Trim and press your end down. And then we do also still have to finish this tassel, so I can just get all of these things out of the way. Grab my piece of cord, my 2 foot or so piece of cord that I cut, and just hold that against my tassel and start binding. So, and then find your beginning end of your tassel cord. Yeah. Come on. Alright, there's the beginning end, and then we're going to tie that in a knot. And make sure you tie your knot nice and tight. Put a small, or you could throw it on the floor. That's another option. Yeah. Apparently it's going to be that day. Alright, so you can put a small drop of hypo cement on that and tuck that up underneath your bindings and trim it off, and somehow in the last like 2 minutes I've misplaced the hypo cement. So you're just going to have to go ahead and remember that from earlier in the tutorial. So hypo cement on the knot, just a couple drops, and then tuck that up underneath using your tweezers. Like so, and then we're going to go ahead and give this a haircut. And we want to match our length, if possible, to our other tassels, so you want them to be relatively equal in length. And then once again, since the arms are supposed to be in the front of the body, we're just going to rotate that skull around. And then the last thing we need to do is add ear wires, which I forgot to grab, so I will real quick make some with my 22 gauge wire. Ear wires are pretty easy to fabricate, and it's a really good trick to know if like it's the middle of the night and you're like, oh shoot, I don't have any ear wires. So you're just going to take about a 2-inch piece of wire, make a loop in the end with your round nose pliers, find something bigger than your round nose pliers like a pen or a marker, in this case a solder pick, to bend that wire over like so, and then just bend your end out. You can trim it off if you don't want it to be so long, and then file or sand this end so that it's not uncomfortable going through the ear. So again, that's a loop in the end of my wire over my larger forming device. And then, since this is going to be a pair, I do want to make sure that these are about the same length. So this one needs just a bit of a trim. Alright, so there's our ear wire, and then we're just going to go ahead and add this onto our earring. So just open the loop, drop the earring on there. Again, make sure it's oriented so that, see, everything's kind of sideways at this point, so I want to make sure that everything is going to be front ways when it's on my ear. Like so, and then close it up nice and tight. And then do the same with your other one. So open, drop it on, close it up, and adjust if necessary. This one I don't think needs much adjustment. And there you go. That's our Dia de los Muertos earring. Super easy, basic tassels, basic wire wrapping, a little bit of chain, a little bit of jump rings, and you get these super cute earrings. Yay! So, thanks so much for joining us for well, thanks, Prince. Thanks so much for joining us for our 2 weeks of Halloween, week 2, lunchtime tutorial. We will be back on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream, this evening at 6 p.m. with our crow's cage pendant. So that's going to be a skull bead that I will embellish, and then I will wire wrap for you, so, and show you how to do that. It's also a really good wire wrapping technique for anything that doesn't have a hole that's kind of more round or chunky. So catch that tutorial this evening at 6 p.m. Central Time on twitch.tv/Beading Dream. Now it's time for me to go be a retail worker in my own business. So everyone have a great afternoon, and we will see you this evening. Thanks all. Bye.